Welcome to SuperMiata and 949 Racing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this new APR 2D wing. For those of you not familiar with 2D and 3D, 2D is essentially when it has one curvature all the way across the span, as opposed to the wings that are twisted and have different curvatures. That would be a 3D wing. The benefit of a 2D wing is essentially it's going to be a little bit more efficient when it's allowed to run in free stream or near free stream. In other words, the air that's hitting it, it's the same angle all the way across. Now what a 3D wing will do, where it'll work best, is when it's down low on the trunk lid. Now here you can see this 2D wing is roughly level to the top of the car. And if we had a 3D wing mounted down here, the air that would be hitting it would be coming up over the side of the car and actually swept up into the cambered portion, and the air hitting the center portion of the wing would be coming off the back of the car and actually being sucked down a little bit. So the air coming off the center would be hitting it about here, and the air hitting the end would be hitting it about here. That's the reason the wing has a twisted shape in it. Now a 2D wing is going to work best when the air hitting it's all at the same angle. That's why we mount it up high like this. Now generally most of the air hitting this is coming at a slight downward slope off the top, and it's almost level. And you can see here, I'm going to show you how we set up our wing angle. This one here is at a 2.3 degrees relative to ground plane. Now we call that 2.3 angle of attack. It's not technically 2.3 angle because we don't actually know the exact angle of the air that's hitting it. But just for purposes of a reference, so we would call this a relative measurement and not an absolute measurement. Absolute, you'd have to have this wing completely above the car, like 2 feet or so. But that gives us, when we're tuning the wing, we simply set a flat edge on it, put the camber gauge on there. A good idea is to take the camber gauge and put it down on the ground as well. So if your ground plane is, let's say, 1 degree slope in the paddock, then you can compensate for that, so you know you're making real-time adjustments. Nice thing about this new 2D wing is the basically whole plate type of adjustment. You can see there's multiple holes there, and on the other side there's another set of holes. So when you loosen up one of these bolts here, you can move the wing up and down and simply select another hole, and they go in about 1.5 degree increments. So you can go from angled upward to angled downward quite a bit, which is kind of convenient. One little bonus here, this is certainly not intentional, but as a perk, you can release this bolt here and pivot the wing all the way so it's straight up and down. Of course, you wouldn't drive it that way, but it's nice for parking because when you put it in your trailer, the wing doesn't hit anything on the back of the car. That's how we load it into our trailer, so that's kind of convenient. Now this part is riveted on. The base is riveted on in part of the wing. APR will be offering basically a set of stanchions. Not these. This is something we've kind of cobbed together. Not necessarily ideal, but it works for the time being. Being a pre-production piece, APR didn't have the stanchions ready for me, so we kind of made our own. But they'll have a much nicer stanchion here, and then a standard trunk mount. I don't know what applications they're doing. Not sure if they'll do a Miata application. That may be up to us. But for the time being, we're essentially testing this wing and having a lot of fun with it. So what we have found is that everything being equal, we can reduce the drag significantly over a GTC 200 application and have roughly the same downforce because we're able to run it a little higher. You notice this wing is really wide. It's a 64-inch wing on a Miata. The body is 64.5 inches, so it's just inside the width of the body. So we wanted to run the maximum width and run the shallowest angle. This particular wing, for medium-sized courses like we ran in Finion last week, on probably set a track record while we were there. This is a 2.3 degree positive angle. We run Auto Club Speedway, which is a really long high-speed track, and we actually tilt this negative. The reason it works negative and still generates downforce is that the air coming over the top of the car, again, is not going straight out like this. It's actually being sucked down slightly. So when it hits the wing, it's actually coming at a couple of down degree angle. We don't really know what that angle is, but we were able to tilt this thing up just a tiny bit, run about 1 degree negative, and it still provided downforce. We know that because when we took the wing off, the car was undrivable and had about the same top speed, which was pretty interesting. Now that in itself is interesting, that we found with this particular wing, when it's trimmed out to its lowest possible downforce, it still generated downforce, but had the same top speed as no wing. And you might ask yourself, why did it have the same drag with and without the wing? Well, the reason why a wing like this, when it's mounted in an efficient position, it actually creates suction on the bottom half of the wing, and it'll help the air that would normally on a Miata roll over the top and come detached here and create form drag. It creates suction here, and it actually helps the air to stay attached a little bit better over the trunk lid, and actually reduces form drag on the body, even though you have form drag on the wing itself. The two roughly cancel each other out. There's probably still a slight net increase in drag, but the difference is so small that we found the same terminal velocity at the end of the front straight at Auto Club Speedway with and without a wing. So pretty interesting stuff. So the advantage for this is going to be on your small to medium sized cars that need just a little bit of downforce, but they really don't want to have to have a lot of drag. So all your small and medium sized cars, this is going to be an excellent choice for road racing when you want just a little bit of downforce. And what we're shooting for in this endurance racing car, the Crusher here, is not huge downforce, but just to reduce the lift, because the standard Miata body shape is, like most production cars, round on the top, flat on the bottom. It's basically a wing and generates lift, and we don't want lift. We want to have zero lift, or maybe just a couple of pounds of net downforce. So we run a very low drag wing in a very conservative position up high in the clean air, and we actually benefit by reducing the overall drag of the car and having a little bit of downforce. So that's how we implement the APR wing. Go to aprperformance.com for more information on that wing. We will have this on our website in a couple of months. That's about it for now. Thanks.